Hey guys, welcome. You guys can hop in the box. We will be discussing what adoptive parents can do better to support their adoptee. We are also aiming to fundraise for creating a 501c3, which I forgot to put the Cash App in. That was stupid. Anyway, it is my name with the, what do you call it? The sign. You guys are welcome to, like I said, hop in the box. But we will be speaking on what adoptive parents can do better to support their adoptee. So if you're an adoptee, please feel free to hop in the box and let's have a discussion. Your voices will be amplified here first. Birth parents and adoptive parents can also hop in the box if they so wish. But I would like to hear from other people on what they think and not just my own voice. Because I think it's important that while we absolutely discuss how adoptees feel and amplify others, other adoptee voices, we currently can't change the system the way it is, besides working on bills in Congress, which we definitely are. There's ways that adoptive parents can help their adoptee and be more supportive, right? We tend to call them trauma-informed. So while I don't coddle adoptive parents here, I definitely welcome them to stay and listen, especially we have readings on YouTube. I have links in the link tree for resources. As well. But I definitely think that we need to be trauma informed when you're an adoptive parent. Or, well, not we. I am not an adoptive parent. I'm an adoptee. And I think that's one benefit I personally had as an adoptee, right? I'm one of the very rare few whose adoptive parents were trauma informed. That doesn't mean that we don't still have trauma. That doesn't mean that we don't still face legalities, which is what I mainly speak on this channel, platform, whatever you want to call it. But being trauma-informed also means amplifying our voices, right? It means not centering yourself. It means working through your own generational trauma, your personal feelings on, how do I explain this? On parenting, right? So, like, for example, I'm not saying all, a lot of adoptive parents are infertile, and they think that adoption is, well, they use it as a second option or their only way to have that family building. And instead of working through that pain and, like, getting therapy, which I absolutely think they need, they instead use us as a Band-Aid, right? And then that harm comes back on us. So we're treated as a infertility band-aid, right? That was actually why my adoptive parents adopted. Now, that's not to say that my adoptive parents didn't work through that, right? They very much did. But it still wasn't a good reason to use us as a family building tool, if that makes sense. Now, what my adoptive parents did in terms of good things, right? Like I said, they did go through therapy. They worked through their generational trauma. They made sure that they knew what was in my best interest, as in keeping my adoption open, which I know is complicated, but my own complication in that, excuse me, they told me from the beginning, I was adopted. Scott, would you like to come up and speak on your experience? I would love to have you in the box. I don't know if you have enough viewers. You do. Just let me know, Scott. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, so what were they? They did all the readings, the same readings that I've been doing. They went to conferences, no problem. Gosh, I'm like losing my voice again. They went to adoption conferences. So I'm in New York, or I live in New York now. That's not where I'm originally from, but there's the Adoption Parents Committee, so APC, and they did host annual conferences in Albany, but they also have like little get-togethers within New York City. And if you're familiar with adoption and adoption healing, Joe Soul, who's a wonderful author, as well as an adoptee, I think he's a therapist he's a therapist as well. Highly recommend. He runs Adoption Healing, so adoptees, you guys can check that out. And he does get-togethers a couple times a year out in Long Island. Anyway, he travels and speaks at these conferences. So I've known him my entire life, ironically. Yes, Bridget, absolutely. That is something that is so important for our adoption, is genetic mirroring and having those connections. That's actually something that I did want to discuss, right? So that is when my adoptive parents were searching, right? So like we can go into how problematic that part can be, but when my birth mom pre-matched, right? She chose my adoptive parents. That was something they discussed, was keeping my adoption open. Bridget, would you like to come up? You're welcome as well. To discuss, what you think would be helpful to support adoptees. But my adoptive parents wanted to keep my adoption open, and that's exactly what they did. Oh, I can invite you. Hold on. I sent you an invite.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, you're a birth mom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was forced to place in 1978.
I'm so
Back
sorry.
back in the day of, like, all closed. nothing, you knew nothing about where your baby went or who had
Hmm.
her. So yeah, I've been a birth mom since 1978.
Yeah, that's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. I you know I met her. We had the reunion. It's not a great one, but we talk frequently. She only lives 50 miles from me, so but
Oh,
yeah, it's okay. It's good.
well, but I
You
mean,
know.
50 miles is not, nothing in
No, yeah,
comparison.
yeah. Where I live, it's very, very rural, so 50 miles is nothing. So,
Yeah, I'm in the middle of nowhere, so I get it.
but I just wanted to pop in and say that adoptees have all my support. In fact, I was on a committee that passed the laws in New York State, um, so adult adoptees can get their birth certificates now.
Hmm.
So I thought like it was crazy for that, and now I go on to other states and help and support them. Um, that's my goal in life, is to make sure that all adoptees are given their original birth certificate.
Hmm.
And with these, newer adoptees, I feel that should be a certificate of birth for with the who
Of
gave birth,
adoption.
and a certificate of adoption. Yes. So, but
Yeah,
I have to get off because my
no
dog
problem.
wants out. So I will definitely pop in more though. I really, like I said, I want to give all the support I can to any adoptee. And I do have one suggestion. You might have heard of it. It's called, her name is Haley Radke, and it's called Adoptees On. She's
Yes,
not much on TikTok.
she
She's
has a
just started,
podcast.
but
Yeah.
she is out of Canada, and she has podcasts that are on every Friday. Cause yes,
Yeah.
cause I listen to that a lot to let me know,
Hmm.
get get I information like what my daughter is feeling, what she's going through. So I just wanted to put that out there, that is a really good podcast for adoptees. And I'm a firm believer in her, um Joe Soul, people like that. But I wanted to thank you for letting me get on here and ramble and
No, you're
talk.
good. I
So
appreciate it.
I will say goodbye for now, but I look forward to popping in more often.
All right. It's good to see you. Thank you. Thank you for all the support.
Cool. I'm saving you right now.
Okay. The podcast is
Okay, you
called,
have a good day.
you too. The podcast is called Adoptees On. It's Haley, I forgot the
Yes.
whole name.
Radke.
Yeah, Radke.
Haley Radke.
There's a few other
Yeah.
podcasts that fellow adoptees do as well. Um, I know Adoptee Jen does one. Adoption Connection, I think,
Cool.
does one.
I'm glad that you get the information out so they have resources. There was nothing, there was no resources.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Adoptee Jen and I are friends.
yeah,
And there's also, oh, what's her name? Oh, Adoption Chameleon.
yes,
She's really good too.
yeah. I tag
People
her a
that
lot, and
fight to change laws and you know get things the
mhm.
way they should be.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a great day. I'm going to hang up.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye. All right. There we go. Um. Yeah. Not every state has open or has access to our original birth certificates. So, like she was saying that New York was one of the first states to change. We seem to be the leaders here. Um. But even with that, our thank you, Deb. I appreciate it. Even with that, our original birth certificates become null and void. So like mine doesn't even have my name. Like some okay, how do I explain this? On the original, it depends on, obviously the situation, but some adoptees have been named by their biological family, right? And then they often get changed by the adoptive family. Now, in my case, I didn't even have a name. My birth mom, allowed my adoptive parents really, to name me, and this is another way to support, right? Where they named me all together, the three of them, and my middle name was shortened to honor her, right? So my original birth certificate has baby girl, my birth mom's last name, and weirdly enough, it doesn't have my biological father's name, even though I know who he is. And I have like his information. So my open adoption was not with him. That gets complex, but they made sure that I had full access to my birth mom. So phone calls, emails, letters. My adoptive parents made sure that they kept the same phone number, that they kept the same address, that they kept the same email, so that no matter what, she was able to access us. Now, again, it gets complicated because unfortunately 90% of open adoptions close by age 1 and then 9% close by age 5. Now, mine did close around 7 or 8, and that wasn't my adoptive parents' fault. Again, they kept all that open for 30 years. And I also have a very unique last name. Well, my whole name is unique, but something happened. She dropped off the face of the planet and she couldn't be found for the longest time. So that was on her, not on my adoptive parents. But I will say on the birth parent side, and I still have all, so this is actually a good thing, but I do have all those saved. Hi, welcome, Maran. My adoptive parents saved every letter and email. My mom printed everything out and put it into a folder, and I had full access. I had full access to pictures, which I don't know where the heck I placed them during my move, but that is what it is at this point. That was my fault. But so I was gonna say, in one of those letters, I was quite young, but my birth mom actually took accountability for my adoption and put my feelings first, which is why I think I forgive her more than I think I normally would have. Because even at a young age, she recognized that our feelings do come first, right? You're welcome to come up, Maran, and speak on your experience. Oh, you don't have enough followers. Never mind. But you're welcome to speak in the chat. Nope, no problem. I understand. Excuse me, guys. So having full access to our information is really important. One thing that legality problem is that we don't have access to our medical information. So kept children. Oh, okay. Well, do you have a connection to your culture? And that's another thing is like, a lot of us lose that culture aspect, right? So, while I am white presenting, I am indigenous, and it's literally on my paperwork, but my adoptive parents made sure that I knew that I was indigenous, right? They made sure that, as best as possible, that they helped teach me what they could, with the little access that we have, and also being very far from my tribe. So that's complicated. But they always supported that connection. What else did they do? When it came to reunion and finding my family, they were always very supportive. Apparently my adoptive, my parents searched off and on. So when my birth mom disappeared, they kept searching even though I wasn't ready. And even though this is where it gets complicated, I didn't feel comfortable telling them at first that I was searching again. But they were always supportive. Totally understand, Maran. I do understand. But I'm glad your parents were able to teach you about Afghanistan. And yet Russia is problematic. Yeah, I mean, that's great. Yes, being supportive is extremely important, because remember that, and every adoptee has their own feelings, right? There are adoptees that feel like they don't want to look because they feel like that would hurt their adoptive parents, right? There are adoptees that have been told that if they look, that they will be basically abandoned. And then there's the rare few of us who have those supportive adoptive parents about it, right? Because they know that no matter what, they're still our parents. As far as conquering Afghanistan, it's been complex. I know there's been occupations. Yeah, Maran. That's I'm glad that they were doing that for you. I think that's important, because having those genetic connections, having that culture connection, that's vital to us. That's something that gets taken away with our adoption, and we need that. That's like it's like kept privilege, right? There are things that they don't understand because it's automatic. And so we're often told that we're so wrong in our feelings, but this is something that we need. Oy. Good morning, Mary. Thank you. Thank you for the shares. Yeah, I'm just curious, Maran, were you able to find them? Oh, I'm sorry. If you've done an ancestry DNA, got it. I was gonna say, if you've done an ancestry DNA, you could maybe try a search angel specifically that understands the whole Afghanistan Russia thing. There are search angels that are specific to those areas. There is a Facebook group that does it for free. So I want you to I want to give resources on that, right? And I know DNA testing can be expensive. And if you do ever return, please be safe. I think, I know it's complicated in war zones, and you want to reconnect with your culture, and that should absolutely be supportive, but also be careful, right? And hopefully those war zones can not be war zones soon, right? I pray for peace, but I understand. What else can adoptive parents do to be better? Oh, I've gotten a lot of hate. So I started posting again, right? Last week, going viral, and of course I get hate. And it's usually from the adoptive parents. And they always feel entitled to our spaces and speaking over us. That is another thing. Yeah, it's okay. We know. That is another thing that don't feel entitled to our spaces. Don't tell our stories. Don't speak for us. Understand that our feelings can change. And it's only up to the adoptee to determine if it was a good experience or not, or if we actually had a better life or not. Sounds like my adoptive mom. My adoptive mom was a lawyer turned social worker. Yeah, I noticed that my mom's retired now, but I do notice that she never really spoke out on the harm that it caused, which I find ironic, even though she didn't work for, well, how do I explain this? She did work for a Jewish foster care adoption agency at one point, but then she went into working with high school kids. Oh, yeah. But she never really spoke out on the harm, which I find ironic. Hey Jen, welcome. But I have noticed that a lot of former social workers and former CPS workers do tend to speak out now on the corruption. So my son has therapy tomorrow, and she was a former CPS social worker, and she was even telling us she left there because of the corruption, right? And she was telling us about, not adoption related, but it was a co-parenting situation, and how the judges just don't even listen to what the child wants. Yeah, I've had this discussion with my adoptive mom as well, that a guardianship would have been better. But I think also so I'm older than you, Moran, but while they existed, they weren't as well known, right? And I think a lot of adoptive parents adopt for the ownership and the title of being a parent, even though you're still parenting with guardianship. Trying to think. A lot of adoptive parents are not, covert, I shouldn't say covert, undiagnosed narcissists or have narcissistic tendencies. Yep, for money. Absolutely. Exactly, Jen. They target those that are struggling to have biological children for whatever reason, right, for the most part. And they push the idea of adoption. And it goes as far as, like, you might have seen the news adopting embryos, right? That's still adoption, right? They just want their profit and not in the best interest of the child. Because if they were truly in the best interest of the child, they would have helped change the laws. And the laws are still remain relatively the same because of Georgia Tann, who is a known human trafficker in the 1940s. Right? And that's when the anti-adoption movement began. A lot of people don't even know the history of anti-adoption, right? They think that this is relatively new because of social media, but there have been trailblazers out there. Yes. Always tell the adoptee. Yeah, my adoptive parents did try IVF prior to me adoption, and I know IVF gets complicated, but it's not a guarantee, right? Yeah, we should always know that we're adopted. And, like, I'm not going to speak for other people, right? But I've heard stories about their adoptions being hidden from them, even in kinship situations. And I just imagine the adoptee feeling so much distrust, right? Distrust to everyone involved. Because who do you turn to when you've been lied on constantly? Yeah, I hear you, Jen. That is amazing, Moran. I love that for him. Do you follow Melissa Guida? I can't think of her full last name. She just did her reunion. I love watching those reunions. Honestly, oh my god, I'm gonna cry. I love hearing adoptees. I think it's Melissa Guida Richards. She's an adoption educator and an author. She just, yeah, she's amazing. She just did her reunion as well, and it warms my heart. Yes. It really warms my heart seeing these reunions. So her book is on what her adoptive parents hid her adoption, basically, until I think she was like 19, if I remember correctly, something like that. And yeah, but yeah, she figured it out. And it was very public. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, I've heard these stories of these adoptive parents hiding the adoption part, like the, from the adoptee, but the adoptee always knowing. Yeah, that definitely helps. Sometimes you just can't get away with knowing, right? I have a cousin who's Korean, and his adoptive parents are white. So, like, very much in a... You just can't get away with it. I agree, Jen. I agree. Like, we should never remember the first time we're told, right? That is something that, like, there was... I forgot whose post it was on. It was on another adoptee. And the adoptee was saying... Not the original adoptee that post, but it was in the comments that she wished that she was older and understood when she was told. And psychological studies disagree, right? We should always know. Oh, that was me. I let it be known I'm adopted, right? Like, it doesn't bother me in that sense. Oh, that's so funny. My son sometimes calls my mom babushka. She's Ukrainian Russian descent, and Polish. It's kind of funny. But yeah, that's my adoptive mom, not my birth mom. My birth mom is German Dutch, and my birth dad is indigenous. So yeah. And now my son was asking last night if we can learn our native language. And he's like super proud to be indigenous. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So I've been in reunion with my birth mom for 11-ish years. I haven't... Hey, Tracy. I haven't met her in person just because it's hard to get out there, and I have mixed feelings. She's been in really bad health as well. My birth father I did find a couple years ago. Oh, I'm so sorry, Tracy. So I did find my birth father a couple years ago, but he never responded, nor did I do have siblings, nor did my older half sister. And then I did call my paternal grandmother, who was the one that forced my adoption. And I had that rejection as well. So it's been complicated, to say the least, on my birth father's side. And I don't really want a relationship. I just want answers. And I'm coming to the point of it is what it is, and I'm trying to get those answers in other ways, because I don't think I'm ever going to have that. And so it's just, coming to that conclusion. But yeah, I mean, reunions can definitely be a mixed bag, for sure. And, you know, I respect anyone who, yeah. Oh, hold on. Someone's in the guest box. It's Mary. Hey, Mary.
Good morning. How are
Good
you?
morning.
I was just gonna say, what you're saying is absolutely right on target. Reunion is absolutely a very complicated spot to be in. And when we've talked with other adoptees, what we always say is make sure you're in a good space,
Mm-hmm.
not to be in any like life major changes. Just to be in a good spot emotionally, physically, to be able to handle it. You know what I mean? And to be prepared, you know, for the good and the bad. That can happen because it absolutely will be a roller coaster. It
Mm-hmm.
will be, you know. And like you will, we'll never know our complete birth stories. We don't. We'll never completely know. You know, we just may not ever have all those answers, which isn't right that we don't have those answers. But we have to accept that we may not have all those answers. And some of us are lucky to get more answers than others. But, the journey is always ongoing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, you know, like I said, there are adoptees who feel like they don't want to look because they feel like they're disrespecting their adoptive parents. And I want to let you guys know that, like, for anyone listening, because I know Mary and Tracy and Moran and Jen know that, like, you're not going to be disrespecting your adoptive parents. Like, you have every right to search if you so choose, right? But there are adoptees who choose not to search, and that is okay, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen.
And you may not be in that space. And that's,
Yeah.
for me, like, I wanted to know those answers. And, I was willing to take that chance, take that risk for those answers. Because, like you, I felt I was entitled to those answers, and that's just how I personally felt. I don't think anybody should feel that they aren't entitled to know their history or their story.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, Tracy, absolutely. I'm really happy for you. I will say that when I found my birth mom again, and like we've talked off and on over the years, it's been so healing. And like, it's those little things where I find it funny, right? So like, I grew up between um, New York City, upstate New York, and like we spent a lot of time in Maine, but I never felt like New York City was home, right? But upstate New York has always been home to me. It's been that nature. And I think that was my connection to my indigenous side, right? And then like I've like always been reconnecting with my tribe, but digging deeper and deeper and finding the exact band of, our tribe, learning that we did live in log cabins. I've always had a love of what do you call it? Victorian farmhouses, and then finding out that my birth mom lived in this beautiful Victorian farmhouse, my connection to horses, which I did know about this part, but like both my adoptive parents raised horses. Not my adoptive parents, my birth parents both raised horses, which ironically my adoptive parents also had horses, but it's just those little pieces. Yeah, it's those. And like finding out that we both have a love of Josh Gates and like history and ghost hunting and like these small little things, right? And it's like, it's those small little things that matter.
It really is, and I always loved the ocean, the water, the sea, as
Mm-hmm.
far back as I could remember. And then I found out that my father was a seaman and was a captain and did the ferry boats and did the
Right. I
boats.
remember that.
You know, it's like you can't explain that. Like it
Well,
how did I know that, right? But I always had just a connection to the water, to see the ocean, like
yeah.
always.
Well, I will say that because neither of mine are connected to water in that sense, but water is a calming force. And it can be very healing as well. So, but I agree. You okay? They're gone. Can you grab me the phone? They're gone. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hello? Was it just beans that was there? Yes. What? Yeah, that was it. Okay. I didn't call. Maybe it was his dad. All right. Okay. Bye. Sorry, that was about my son's therapy tomorrow. Co-parenting, not fun. Yeah, Tracy, me too. We're going to Maine in May. That's our fun place. And like, we stay right off the ocean. It's been our place forever. You definitely should. It's very calming. Like, don't get me wrong, I love to travel, I love to go to other places, but that will always be my go-to. You know? But yeah, it's those little things that add up that like make a huge difference in knowing. Oh, okay. I love that, Jen. Yeah, you're pretty close. I'm not. But we do have a stream. So I am close to water. And then we're near a lot of different lakes and ponds that we have access to. So we're not that bad. And then I take the little one swimming all the time. So it works out. Yeah, I used to live right off the East River. And I had mixed feelings about it until after Hurricane Sandy, which I know sounds ironic, but that, my son was born at that point. He loved just walking the East River, walks from like our area down to Brooklyn Bridge and back. Okay. North Carolina is beautiful too. I've been there a couple times. Never to the ocean there, but I've definitely been there. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely good adoptive parents out there. Very rare and few. I also noticed that a lot of adoptees tend to go no contact with their adoptive parents because of the lack of support, you know? Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling, honestly, JC. My parents are in their sorry. My parents are 78 or about to be 78 and 79 this year. And my mom's been in very bad health to the point where okay, there are filtered comments. I don't know what they are. I don't know if I can see what they are. I don't know what that is. So if your comments aren't coming through, it's not me, it's TikTok. Just letting you guys know. Anyway, yeah, my parents are in their 70s. Yeah. Late 70s, and like last year was a nightmare with my adoptive mom needing to radiate, needing surgery. Actually, she's at a doctor's appointment now because of the aftermath. But it's just been a nightmare. I'm good. How are you? Oh, thanks, Tracy. Yeah, but and that's another thing is like health reasons. You know, growing up with a parent who's, and you can't always know, right? Like, but growing up with a parent who's sick doesn't help either. Like that, being scared to lose another parent, right, is tough. And my mom's had a lot of different liver surgeries since I was young. It's scary. It's definitely scary. So even last year, even though I'm in my 30s, it's not your fault, Tracy. You know, I was truly prepared for her to unalive, right? Like I was in that zone where that could have been the reality. She's alive. She's a pain in my butt, but she's alive. But I mean, you know, thank you. You know, she was in a coma, and then she got out of the coma. The coma was 2 days, so not a big deal. But, you know, she went through so many health issues recently where even if she wasn't my adoptive mom, right? Like, just a mom in general, it's so incredibly scary to deal with, right? But then you add in that extra trauma layer of losing another parent, right? And it sucks. It just sucks. But we're hoping that everything turns out okay. Because I hope she lives till her 90s. All of my other, well, I shouldn't say all of my other family did. Yeah, no, I don't think you should feel guilty of that. I really don't. Like, I'm trying to think of it in a way of like, you know, you want them around, right, for their grandkids and stuff. Yeah, exactly. You do everything possible. And sometimes they're stubborn, sometimes they're narcissists, whatever, or narcissistic tendencies. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Mary, for coming up. But at the same time, it's kind of a sense of relief to not mask. And it's a sense of relief to, like, not have to care for a sick parent anymore. You know? So I totally understand. Sweetie, you okay? Are you hungry? Okay. Sorry. Kiddo woke up. Yeah. And I think that's a completely normal response, especially when you had a tough childhood. And lack of support, right? And, like, I think also, like, for me, I mean, I don't want her to... Okay. Thank you, Jen, for coming in. You know, during the last year when my mom's been hospitalized, I lost 2 other family members during her 2 hospitalizations. So it's been, like, extra tough, right? So, like, her first surgery was in April. Well, first 2 surgeries, I should say, were in April. That's when she ended up in a coma, and I lost my uncle from my birth mom's side, the one that actually helped me get in reunion with her. I'm in New York. And then when she was hospitalized in September, I think it was September, I lost my great aunt. So it was her aunt. They actually were in the same hospital. But she didn't, it's a complicated story. She wasn't even allowed to go visit her because they messed up. So yeah, it's been one thing after another, honestly. It really has been, on a personal level. And it's just been, like, frustrating to say the least. Yeah, New York is pretty. I'm not a big city fan, to be fair. I know a lot of people are, but I haven't been to New York City since 2021. And, like, part of me wants to go back just for, like, certain museums, and part of me just doesn't. Yeah, like a once-in-a-lifetime chance. It's not something I want to go back to living. I do want to go back in April, because I'm only a couple hours away. Because they're honoring my aunt at the New York Public Library. And I would like to be there for my cousin. To show up, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to be there. So otherwise, yeah, I don't really have that much of an interest going back. I really don't. Like, it's funny because, like, Alex, so I, like, like, book face, because, we gotta filter out some stuff for TikTok here. And, like, I see my friends, like, one of my friends posted, yes, that's my name. She posted about working at the Disney store, and, like, her last day, and it, like, brought back so many memories. Oh, but I really don't miss Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, so what was I saying? It brought back memories of when I worked at Disney. Which I do miss, but I also don't miss. What? This gosh darn cat. You want to go down there? Ugh, let me let the cat down in the basement. Because this one is just the biggest pain in the butt. Okay, Beans, come on. Come on. You want to go back down? You can go back down. There you go. Yeah, so. Oh, you too, Moosh? Alright, go ahead.
Wait, what?
Well, now he's down in the basement. But yeah, I definitely think that with Beans is not, but Mushu, anytime I have like turkey or salami, that cat will be at me like he's a little dog and wants to be fed. So I'm always sharing my turkey slices with him. Always. Well, but they're both now in the basement, so they are something else. They're very noisy. Your dogs want your salad. That's funny. Yeah, animals just like food. They just want everything, right? Everything that's not theirs, they want. Well, and that's another thing is like having. Oh, what kind? What breed? So we have 6 cats here, but my son has 6 dogs at his dad's because co-parenting. And so he has 3 beagles, 2 mastiffs, and a black lab retriever mixed. Oh, that kind of hit hard. I definitely feel that. I mean, I've had animals my entire life. Oh, so cute. But I've had a lot of different animals. So I've had, oh lordy, what kind of animals have I've always had cats. I've had some dogs. I've had horses. I've had cows. I've had frogs. I've had salamanders. I had a mouse. And what else did I have? Oh, fish. Yeah, that's pretty much the kitten. One of the kittens that just went downstairs. We have 4 kittens at the getting 4 kittens in 1 year at the same time as my mom being sick, probably a bad idea. But they are lovable. Yeah, us too. We love animals. And I think, animals are very healing as well. Having that connection. So did I. I'm technically allergic to all animals. But I took allergy shots for the cats specifically. So even though it shows up that I'm still allergic, I don't react. Just a thought. I just take Zyrtec for the others. So that I don't. Gotta make my coffee. Yep, that's what Zyrtec is for. But animals can definitely be healing as well. there's definitely things that we can do to work on our healing, and that's something that like I want to bring to this channel, because it does say healing and resources, and I've kind of been on a binge of having fun with the ignorant comments, to be on like CapCut and stuff, making fun, because like if I don't laugh I cry, um but I definitely want to bring in more like journaling, healing, shadow work, posts, as well as more just education. Sean, be nice. Please stop. This is about adoptees. I don't know if you're adopted, but Tracy is. She is welcome here. Well, then this space might not necessarily be for you. Are you an adoptive parent? I agree, JC. Yep, they really are, JC. Okay, Sean, are you an adoptive parent? Because if not, then this space is not for you. And like, this is an adoption discussion on how adoptive parents can do better. Okay, then why are you here being nasty? Okay, well then your input means nothing. Anyway, yeah, I agree. Hold on. He's blocked. Yes, keep it child-centered. Absolutely agree. Absolutely. And I think that's no problem, Tracy. I think that's the problem, is that it's a whole industry that is not child-centered, right? We lose our rights because of adoption, right? So that's another point that I want to, bring in. And I did make a post that if you're not with us, you're against us, right? Because if you really care about the adoptee, then you're going to fight for their rights. Even if they choose not to use that access, right? So for example, I posted that adoptee rights law is working on an annulment or reversal adoption bill, right? That's not going to have an effect on all adoptees, right? So for example, I'm not going to use that, right? However, there are many adoptees who do want that, right? So fighting for our rights is going to be important. Fighting for us to have equality is going to be important. That's frustrating. Can't you order it online? I'm pretty sure you can order it online. Nope, not unpopular opinion. JC, I agree. I absolutely agree. Oh, okay. Yeah, it definitely should be. I know that there is there's something that birth parents can do. I think it's called Act 101. Where they can go, but it's not in every state. So that is definitely something that should be necessary. But yeah, I mean, it definitely should be legally binding if it's going to stay. I also think that for-profit needs to go. I think mandatory therapy for all involved, birth parent, adoptee especially, and adoptive parent, and it should be an adoption competent therapist. Oh, all right, hold on. I'm trying to make my coffee and phone keeps ringing. Hello. Okay. Never mind. Just a reminder that kiddo has therapy. Okay. All right. It was just a reminder that you have therapy tomorrow. You getting hungry, baby? What do you want? Do you want eggs? Yeah, everyone needs therapy involved. Bless you. Are you on with someone? Yeah, I'm on live. Not really. Very low. Okay. Yeah, I think therapy should be mandated. I think there should be check-ins. I think that now I'm losing my bless you. Now I'm losing my train of thought here. What was it? There should be check-ins. There should be better education that's not pro-adoption focused. That was another thing coming from ooh, that's horrible. That's interesting, Tracy. My parents are boomers, like literally born right on the cusp of the end of World War II. And my dad is a little bit more on the silent side than my mom, but both did healing in their own way. Yeah, that's another thing is they're constantly being put on a pedestal. Bless you. Mine always said, like, don't thank us, right? Like, we're not saviors. But I know both my parents had a really tough childhood as well. And they didn't want me to have that with their generational trauma. That's another thing is we get generational trauma from both our adoptive parents as well as our biological parents. And that's like double. Yeah. As much as I love my mom, she definitely has those tendencies. And I think a lot of adoptive moms specifically do have those narcissistic tendencies because I've noticed that if it wasn't for the adoptive mom, the adoption probably wouldn't have happened to begin with. So, generational trauma is not just like how we're raised, but how, think nature versus nurture, right? Nature wins out, right? And so, are you kidding me? I'm so tired of this darn phone. Hello? Hi. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Sure. Wednesday would probably be better. Sorry, guys. I'll be right there. Morning is fine. Nine o'clock, please. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Bye. Okay. Sorry, guys. Had to reschedule something. Yeah. So, generational trauma is, so it's passed down not just through the parenting that we receive, but also through like our blood and our bones and our brain development and all of this. I know that gets like way more complicated, but it's like, it's innate, right? It's I'm trying to explain this in the best way possible. Okay, so remember, Tracy, like when we were talking about how like reconnecting with our biological family and how like there's those little things that add up. Like I was telling you how like that immediate connection to like living in a log cabin to my tribe, right? Or how my biological mom grew up on a horse farm, and the house was this beautiful Victorian home, and I've always had this like weird connection specifically to Victorian homes, right? And horses specifically. Those are just two examples. It's that nature part of us, right? It's just kind of like, but think it's just passed down constantly. And the more trauma that happens that's not healed, the more it gets passed down, right? So that's why working on healing that, yeah, it's complicated, and I know like there's different avenues of it, right? Where the more that we heal those traumas, the less we pass down to our children, right? So like for us specifically, reconnecting with our culture, right? We're maybe doing reunions, healing that adoption trauma as best as possible, right? Understanding how our brains get rewired from trauma, right? I'm trying to like explain as best as possible. There's so many things that come into play with it. Here's a good example, right? So for my actually this would be relatable to both my adoptive side and my birth side, but for my adoptive father, he was an alcoholic, right? And the addiction gene runs in the family, right? So his parents were both alcoholics. What, baby? Okay. So like both his parents were alcoholics. I believe his grandparents were alcoholics and so forth, right? So it gets passed down. Now, I don't know if that would be passed down to me because of adoption, in the sense that we're not biologically related, right? But it does run also in my birth family, right? My biological father has that gene. So to counteract that, I'm really grateful that my adoptive parents told me, hey, your birth father has this. Didn't demonize it. Granted, he definitely should have been, but I'm glad that they didn't. Only I can do that, right? But it's just, sorry, you just saw a cat come through. Yeah, hi, Coco. Sorry, the cat just decided to say hi. Okay, thank you, Coco. So yeah, my adoptive dad has it, and then it's again come through with my older half brother, and then my grandfather, and so forth, right? So knowing that, I specifically choose not to drink because I don't want to go down there. I don't want to go down that route. And that's something that I also tell my child, because that is important to know, because it can take one sip or one thing, right, to go down that route, right? You don't know, but we have that, right? And often when it comes to addictions, it's because they have trauma that they don't want to heal, that they don't want to work through. So while taking the sip is a choice, it's the healing of the trauma. And to recover, it's not just choosing not to take whatever substance it is, right? So drinking, for example, it's working and healing those traumas. Oh, thank you. That was Coco deciding to come in and interrupt us. Which she's right. I don't know if you guys can see her. She's up. I can't do it with the green screen. She decided to jump. So it's definitely one of those things, and it's a reason why a lot of adoptees are at a higher rate of substance abuse. So we are 4.75 times more likely to turn to substances because of our trauma, right? We are 4 times more likely to unalive ourselves. We're 8 times more likely to be abused and unalived by our by our adoptive parents, right? And like there's more higher statistics. And this is why when people say, like, there was someone that I ended up having a block who was a fellow adoptee, but she just was on some nonsense, right? Very pro-adoption. And she was telling me that I was giving adoption a negative stigma when I'm just stating the realities, right? And her solutions never discussed counteracting any of those statistics, right? And that was the problem, is like she didn't want to change the system in the way that actually helped adoptees, right? Whereas I think therapy and having access to therapy, right, especially adoption competent therapists, and like there are adoptees in here, or I don't know if they're still in here specifically on this live, but on TikTok, who are going for their counseling license, where they've discussed the education that they receive studying social work, where they glance over adoption and adoption trauma, and a lot of it is inaccurate. Yep, Dream Girl. You know, I lost a friend in 2012. Yeah, 2012. She OD'd, fellow adoptee. And it's sad. You know, it's, you know, it's not even just the sewer side. It's like, if you look on the news, majority of those cases, like the Lori Vallow case, right? They rarely talk about the fact that those two children, JJ and I can't think of the other one's name, were adoptees. Yeah, we're, we also make up 40% of mental health institutions, prison systems, and the troubled teen industry. These are things that need to be discussed, right? We suffer so much more than even war veterans. And like, that's the thing, is like, these statistics are acknowledged by our government. Now, look, I'm not a fan of our government at all, right? Like, I want to make that clear. But the fact that our own government can acknowledge this and still allow it makes me disgusted. Yep, exactly, Dream Girl, exactly. Like, they just want to see the rainbows and butterflies and the happiness. And like, don't get me wrong, there are, like, my story, I'm a happy adoptee, right? But I try to keep my story to a minimum because I'm in the rarity, right? And just because I have a good adoption experience does not mean I don't have adoption trauma. It does not mean that I don't face legalities, right? And there are other adoptees who try to speak out and they get so much hate. And like, we have to make it clear that their voices matter. They're in the majority. How many is it going to take for us to change the system? Like, that's that's the reality. I mean, look at the Pew Pew shootings, right? Our country has done nothing. Whereas, I believe it was New Zealand, where they had one, I don't remember what year it was, and they immediately put into place better laws to protect the citizens. Now, granted, New Zealand and Australia are also better for adoptees and give them more rights and have actively worked on changing their system and being more child-centered. There's other locations, I think was it Ireland, Wales, and I think Great Britain have also just come out recently apologizing to adoptees. Now, granted, there's still harm being done, but it's a start, right? It's definitely a start. But I mean, it's just, I think majority of us have complex PTSD, and that goes so undiagnosed for adoptees. We're also at a higher rate of chronic illness, higher rate of being neurospicy. I mean, like, hi Lala. Hey Aaron. Yeah, there's a lot that we face as adoptees that we're constantly being spoken over. I mean, a prime example, right? Prime example. On my page alone, I have boundaries, right? Do not tell, if you're not an adoptee, do not tell the adoptee story, right? Just don't. And I put the boundary in place, I give a warning, and they still, they make me try to be the bad guy. You would think if a boundary is in place, most people would be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I apologize, I'll do better, right? No. They're entitled. They're narcissistic, right? So I can tell a story if I want to. It's my story too, or you're silencing other voices, or I've gotten you should listen to adoptive parents. It's like, hey, Aaron, do you want to join? Yeah, I can mod you. Dream. I don't have mods in here on the live, but I'm talking just in general of darn it. How do I mod you? Here we go. How do I don't know how to mod. I'll figure out how to mod you. Okay, no problem, Aaron. But this is just in general, like on my posts. Like you can read through the comments, right? Where yeah, I'm welcoming guests. If you want to, feel free to come on up. But yeah, you can read through the comments where I give a warning. Oh, thank you, Dream. I appreciate it. What was I gonna say? I give the warning, and then like they still cross the boundaries, and they're calling me passive aggressive and all this, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, first of all, my platform says adoptee, right? Adoptee. Now, other members of the triad are very much welcome, but there are boundaries. Adoptee voices are going to be amplified. Oh, they also accuse me of only wanting like an echo chamber. You can literally see in my post that I may not agree with people. I still validate and validate their feelings and experiences, right? They're not mine, or I may not feel the same, but they're still valid. Oh, you're welcome, Tracy. And it's like, if they just looked, or I love when they're always asking for the alternative, and then I get the amount of what if questions as if the alternatives don't also cover those. Like, they just don't, they want any excuse for adoption, right? Any excuse. Now, I'm talking child adoption, right? I'm not even talking adult adoption. If, an adult chooses to be adopted, right, that is their choice, right? Or say an older teen through foster care, which I don't really speak on foster care because not my experience. As long as they know all the repercussions that adoption has, like loss of access to all this information and stuff, and they're okay with it, that's okay. That's their choice. Yep, exactly, Dream. We make up 2%. And then we get dogged on by the kept, right? Typically the non-triad members and the adoptive parents, right? On a rare occasion, we'll get the birth mom who's still in the fog that will dog on us. But it's mainly the adoptive parents or non-triad members, for sure. Oh, I see you in the guest box. Hold on. Welcome.
Hi.
Hey.
Nice.
Thank you for coming in. You're gonna see Coco in a second. There we go.
Oh, that's Coco.
Yeah. She says hi. She's also an adoptee.
So one of the things you were saying about how even when you put a boundary, they tell you that you want an echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing is our voices are already silenced, so we kind of need a space for our voices to predominate, to even come close. There's never going to be a balance, right? Anyways, because
Right.
like you said, I think we make up 2% of the
Yep.
population.
Yep. Yeah,
But
and it hurts when there's an even rare percent where an adoptee is also either a birth mom and or an adoptive parent, right? So there are two members of the triad. But I do notice that those that are also adoptive parents are typically deep in the fog, right? I don't know if you know what fog is. So fog is fear, obligation, and guilt, right? They are so blinded by the societal view of adoption that they don't want to break it down for themselves.
And I recently just started thinking about a little bit more about how it was for my adoptive parents. Because they were, so the way I look at it, I'll start with my original birth certificate. Isn't it ironic that that document has the true and correct information and it's sealed? And the only birth certificate I can use legally that, will serve any purpose for whatever it is I'm trying to do in society is a birth certificate that has false information on it. And my adoptive parents were made to go along with that presentation as well. Like it says that, I'm not going to give their real names, but like Susan and Tony gave birth to Ashley on April 1st, blah, blah. And obviously they couldn't have given birth. I mean, she couldn't have given birth to me because they adopted me 2 months after I was born. So they are like in a kind of collective fog, not as, it doesn't impact them nearly as much as us, in my opinion. But yeah, it's just kind of weird, right? That they were made to go along with this document that.
So you can thank Georgia Tan for that. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, but so many others too. Yeah, she's like,
Yeah.
what do you call it?
She's the main human trafficker that helped create the laws to hide us because she was hiding her crimes, basically, and she got away with it because she unalived of cancer prior to her being convicted. But we also have to remember that these agencies that we're up against, right? We're up against a $24.7 billion for-profit industry. And they line the politicians with money to keep the laws in place to keep our rights down.
Yeah.
Yep.
When there's that much money at stake.
They don't care about human rights. And that's why I want to create a 501c3 because we need it. Like, they're saving our sisters, which helps families stay together, right? There's some social services that definitely help. Not enough. We definitely need more, but it's definitely a start, right? And like, when people bring up the whole like, but what about abortion stuff? Like, I hate those arguments. But if we want to be statistically accurate, when social service programs are in, which are generally under Democratic presidents, the abortion rates do go down and family preservation does go up. So there are good things, right? But there's definitely like that societal view that these women in need are like living in poverty, or like they're accusing them of, you know, substance abuse and all that, or like, oh, they can't take of a baby, you know, when that's not true. There's plenty of parents out there, both biological and adoptive, who are doing substance abuses and still taking care of the child, right? Like, they need help. Like, I don't think we should turn our backs on them, but that's not an excuse to rip a child away necessarily, right? Or it shouldn't be the primary reason, in my viewpoint. We should offer the help.
And financially, we see so many of these adoptive parents throwing out a GoFundMe and a fundraiser when those resources, if they had been offered some, even a fraction of those financial and other resources to the biological parents,
Yep.
the majority of them would have kept their baby.
Well, and that's the thing. So these adoptive parents are paying on average between 50 to 100,000, depending on, and like, let's talk about the racism of the adoption agencies, right? So babies cost different amounts based off gender, location, health, the race of the child, the ethnicity of the child, and so forth, right? And like, so it can range, you know, with the whole adoption price, but they're willing to pay $50,000 to $100,000 to an agency who's making profit, right? The minimum court cost is usually like around, I think, like $2,000 at the highest. And like, that's highest, right? That includes lawyers and stuff. But yet they're paying that much. It would cost an average of $2,500, right, to keep a family together. Make it make sense.
It's gross.
Yeah.
It's gross. It's literally selling infants. And and that's when people cover their ears. They don't want to. And you know what's funny? I have some mutuals here on the app who will like a lot of videos. Just as long as I'll see like that they view a video I made on adoption. They won't like that, but they'll like another one that has nothing to do with adoption. So it's just like, and I don't know if you've ever been to a counselor, but
yeah, I do.
How was your experience with that?
So I'm on my third or fourth that I can remember. Well, definitely my third in my adulthood, and I think I had one when I was a kid. I don't remember the childhood one, I'll be honest. The first one in my adulthood was more towards my car accident. My second car accident, actually. I don't know why that one messed me up more than my first. But I was diagnosed with PTSD from that. And I just felt like I wasn't really getting much out of it. The second one was okay, but I don't know, it wasn't vibing. And then this one, I absolutely adore her. Not only is she adoption competent, but she works with she has experience with Indigenous people. She's also a fellow single mom. I can do virtual, although she's like an hour drive, so it's not even that bad if I want to go in person. So I feel like I lucked out. Like, I specifically sought out someone that understood all aspects of what I'm dealing with.
That's great. I'm into my 5th decade of life, and I've had a handful of counselors, and I think for most of my life, I was in some amount of the fog or a lot of the fog.
Yeah.
But more recently, when I had a couple counselors, I was talking about other things as well. But as soon as I would bring up, you know, the longing for my bio family, it's like it seemed to go over their head. I wasn't even sure if they heard me. And then, I had one back in, what was it, like 2017. For a short time, I had one counselor who was a licensed counselor. And I brought up that having been adopted as just part of like my history. And she immediately told me how wonderful that was, and then disclosed that she used to work for agency. What is it called? I mean, it's not the only agency that's guilty
Let
of
me
this,
guess,
but Bethany.
Bethany? I knew it.
But she immediately, like, what's so interesting is that if I had told her any other thing, right? Like, let's say I had told her that I was, I don't know, I can't think of an example. She wouldn't presume to tell me how wonderful it was. But as soon as I told her, as part of my history, that I was adopted, that was the one thing that she told me how wonderful it was. And she never asked.
And Bethany Adoption Agency is like one of the worst agencies of all, like really doing more harm than, like, don't get me wrong, they all do harm, but like it's one of the bigger ones, right, that we discuss. And it's like, yep, we know. It's just, and this is what I'm talking about, like when these social workers, these counselors, these psychologists are not well trained in adoption, right? That's why it's so frustrating, because they have to go through a separate thing to be adoption competent, because they're not taught accurate information in school. And that's a problem.
And people in general, like, I can't count. I don't know. I can think of a number of times where, like, a family member, this is one thing, I won't go into too much detail, but a handful of years ago, a family member was dating someone for a couple of years, and they were thinking of adopting. This is when I was still in the fog, okay?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I never liked the idea of it, but she was asking me, like, for tips and stuff, like if they adopted. And one thing I did tell her was that it would be really critical for them to be very, not just open, but actively welcome and invite and ask their child, like, if they want to talk about it, and just let it be known that, you know, they're welcoming of their curiosity, and even if they wanted to find their bio parents at some point. And she didn't really like that answer. She said, love is what matters. So I made a video last night, and just remembering how every single person that's told me some version of, like, oh, well, you know, it shouldn't matter, that was a long time ago, biological, it doesn't matter. All of those people, you know what I mean? All of those people know all of their biological family.
it's kept privilege.
Isn't that ironic? Like, all of them know that, and they're telling me that it shouldn't matter.
It's all kept privilege, right? Because, hey, Savage, I've gotten told this too, like, oh, like, but like my story was invalidated by actually a fellow foster youth adoptee, that I'm not Indigenous enough because I didn't introduce myself as Indigenous enough. No problem, Tracy. Thanks for coming. And like, this person didn't even really know my story, right? But like, also because I'm white presenting, and I didn't grow up anywhere near my reservation, right? and I can't enroll because of my adoption. Like, I've explained this, right? And it's like, I've always known that I was Indigenous. It's literally on my paperwork. And I've been reconnecting my entire life. How is it I'm not Indigenous enough? Right? Like, it's just those, it sucks. It sucks. But it's those little things. It's like, to get it from a fellow adoptee, though, that was,
yeah, that stings. That's like, that's messed up. There's so many things that would be simple that would, how can I put this, that would work in a different way, but don't because we're adopted.
Right. And like, I've contacted, other Indigenous creators, and they're like, well, you can do this, this, and this. And I'm like, but I can't because I'm adopted. Like, I can't access information, right? So, like, for example, in order for me to enroll, I would have to, so it's my biological father, right? And he's not even on my original birth certificate, which is weird. So I would have to then do a DNA test. I've already begged for 11 years, even from my paternal grandmother, to do a DNA test, right? Because it's her, she's also Indigenous. And I've been rejected. So, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, that's what's frustrating. But I was told, oh, well, you're too far removed to be Indigenous to claim it. And this is from people that are not even within my tribe. These are just creators, right? Whereas I've literally called the enrollment office and spoken to other members of our tribe who said, you're still Indigenous. You may not be able to enroll, but you're still one of us. Make it make sense.
Being adopted is like, how can I say this so I don't get censored? It's a big mind F. If you think about all the multiple things, like going back to the only legal birth certificate we can use is a falsified one. And the one that's the accurate document with the true information can't be used. Like you said, like, make it make sense.
Well, and like the Natalia Grace is a prime example, right? People, I've seen mixed like reactions from the Kept about her story. Like, is she lying? Is she not lying? Like, what's going on? And like, the rehoming and all
What's
that.
her name? Sorry,
Natalia.
What?
Natalia Grace. She has dwarfism, and she was adopted from Russia. And then she was rehomed 3 times to be abandoned by her adoptive parents. Her third set of adoptive parents.
I'll have to look into that somehow.
Yeah, I think it's on HBO, is a documentary. She was also on Dr. Phil. It's a hot mess. But they literally changed the third set of adoptive parents, right? So she's been rehomed, which is not uncommon, especially for international adoptees. But they changed her birth year to make her older than she actually is.
Yeah,
right?
They do all kinds of shady stuff.
And like everything that the adoptive mom, or this adoptive mom, because we don't really get to see the other 2 families prior, but it's like, is nobody questioning the fact that she was rehomed twice? Like, there was an uproar with Micah Stoffer and her rehoming her child, right? But it's like, this is the thing, these people are so uneducated, and a lot of these adoptive parents, especially now, right, in the last 15-ish years, right? Like, because I think YouTube was started in 2003, something around there, where these adoptive parents are adopting, and part of it is still an infertility band-aid, but they also use the child for content creation, right? Like, think Bella Lambert.
Oh, please.
And like,
Don't make my blood pressure go up.
I'm sorry.
I'm just joking. No, I
Yeah,
know who you're talking about. And
but it's just an example, right? Like, she's not the only
yeah,
one.
there's a lot of them. She's not the only one.
They use their child and they exploit the child, right? And yes, bio parents do it too, but the difference is that there's more protection. Think Ruby Frank, where the child can be removed and placed into a better situation, right? I hope, I don't know the full story. I know she's in jail, but I do know that the children are safe, and they might be with dad or an older sibling. But yet it's completely glossed over, and it's all like, oh my God, such a happy baby. But like, all I see is the trauma in those children. And like, they don't care. They're making money off their baby. There's no protection. There's no laws in
Also,
place.
one thing that made me recall is how so before a child is adopted, social services will come to the home and check it out and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
After the child is adopted, no
Nothing.
one checks in on them.
Yep.
And no matter how good the home looks, okay, and these agencies are looking for wealth. They're looking like the nicer the house, the nicer the neighborhood, the external appearance is what matters to them. So I've talked about this before, but it hasn't got much traction about how I think the focus, instead of the nice home and the nice neighborhood, should be doing some kind of thorough psychosocial evaluation of the adoptive parents, because there's been too many kids that have been adopted into nice homes and were later abused or, at the most extreme, unalived. There was a case of a little girl adopted by a couple in New York. This was decades ago, and they were wealthy. The father was a lawyer and all that. And she was later unalived. So I don't know why they don't, do any kind of, to my knowledge, unless there's some rare agency out there that does, but overall, they don't do that.
And the lack of education,
It
like
is.
I've heard I've heard stories of like what kind of if an agency demands education, right? What their options are, and it's so problematic. Like, I was listening to a fellow, well, she was an adoptive parent, but also foster parent, and she does speak out against adoption, right? It was a kinship situation. And she was saying that in her state, as a foster parent, on the list of education was watching Annie.
What?
Yeah. Highly problematic.
Wait, an agency is,
It
I
was
want
a
to make sure.
foster adoption agency. I can't think of her name. It's, oh God, I know her first name and I can't think of her username. I think she's in Missouri. No, is she in Missouri? She's down south somewhere. Mississippi, Missouri, somewhere like in that region. But yeah, it was, yeah, Brenda, yeah.
How many adoptees have made videos over and over and over again that orphanages aren't a thing in the United States? And we still see people, the comments. It's
Well,
like talking to a brick wall, right? We're all like, well, then what do you want to happen to the baby? You want to just like have it put in an orphanage, and over and over. God,
yeah.
it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
That's why our voices do need to be amplified, but as many times as it's said, it's
But
like that privilege and stuff.
what's ironic is there are quite a few adoptees on here who came from orphanages, and they speak out that they would have rather been stayed in the orphanage
So you're
than
talking
adopted.
about international adoptees?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
here there aren't orphanages.
I agree,
But
Brenda.
yeah, I mean,
And then they're still spoken over. And it's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, Brenda, I'm not against certain documentaries or there's like a huge list of books that I would absolutely recommend. My adoptive parents read The Primal Wound. They read Coming Home to Self. They read like the majority of the books that I actually recommend. They also listened to Joel Soul. They did a whole lot of like educating, and this was back in the early 90s. Like this is, late 80s, early 90s, and so this was even prior to like access to information being even easier, and they still understood, right? Like this isn't new. This stuff has been out there. It's just, I just want to face palm sometimes.
but I see your comment, Brenda. Thank you for that. It should be listened to adoptees that should
Yeah.
count and be encouraged for training.
Yeah.
Thank you. Times 100.
Brenda's
100%.
an adoptive parent who really does amplify our voices. I have to go feed the little one, but I thank you guys for coming, and I'm going to be getting on again probably sometime next week. I'll probably do this like once a week and like have these discussions so we can talk more then.
Yeah, thank you. I have enough followers to go live, but so far I've been chicken because if I get comments that are triggering, I don't know.
Well,
So I
that's
feel like I'd want to do a dual live or like have
yeah,
mods or something before I.
absolutely. I'm with you there.
I
All right, have a good day,
okay, well,
guys.
take care. Bye.
Bye.